You are listening to Sean Harrison on Amp Life Talk Radio, a place for amputees and those dealing with limb loss. The views expressed on the show by the host, co-hosts, and guests are their own. Always seek medical advice from a licensed medical professional.
And hello, everyone. Back for another episode of Amp Life Talk Radio, the podcast by an amputee for amputees. I want to let everybody know that if you are dealing with limb loss, you're not alone. This is a show for amputees and those affected by limb loss. That includes family members, caregivers, medical professionals. So tonight, I want to go ahead and let you know ahead of time. I'm dealing with a little bit of a head thing. Like, I don't know if it's a cold or what's going on with me, but my voice may sound a little different. You may see me sipping some drinks here. But more than anything, if I cough, I will try to catch that and keep that off the episode. So my apologies to you right off the bat. Welcome back, everybody. I want to say thanks for tuning in to another episode of Amp Life Talk Radio. I appreciate all of you who follow the show. Typically, I get out and I'm able to give you guys a little heads up of what I'm talking about. But because I was not feeling so good, I was not on my game. I didn't have a precursor to the show posted on Facebook. So a lot of you didn't even know I was going. In fact, I think I'm a little bit, I'm actually early on time. I was trying to get this episode done, do it a little bit earlier so I can get myself back in bed. No rest for the wicked. So tonight, I saw this, and I deal with this so much. The topic tonight, some of you probably see it on the episode if you're over here on Facebook. If you don't see what the topic is, let me see if I can paste it in here. Yes, it's right here. So I'm going to share that with you. So what we're talking about tonight is diabetes, self-care, adherence. Whose responsibility is it? Those of you that are diabetics out there and those of you that I work with that are diabetics, this show is for you. It's for medical professionals, caregivers. The show is going to touch on a lot of stuff tonight. And I'm just basically pulling from a lot of different sites that I was looking at dealing with this topic because so many amputees are diabetic. Hey, Clarence. So what I want to do is I want to start the show off. We're just going to get right into it, but understand where I'm coming from with this show. We do have a problem with diabetes, and I think sometimes as a caregiver, we have a responsibility, but the patients also have a responsibility. Hi, Tamara. So that's what this show is kind of about tonight. So when you hear me get into it, that's what I'm looking at. I read a bunch of information that I saw online, and I put together the show to try and help with this problem that we really do have with this self-care for those of us that are dealing with diabetes. So tonight, let's get on with the show. Thanks, everybody, again for tuning in to Amp Life Talk Radio. As a member of the medical field, I work in that. I'm not a doctor, but I work in there. And, okay, Clarence, type 2. It's one of those things where you work in this industry. I take great pride in helping patients who have amputations find themselves in need of a prosthetic. So I take great pride in that. I take great pride in trying to educate and coach patients on getting back to their life, taking care of themselves, using their prosthetic device. Well, there's a whole other side of this that hopefully through some of the information tonight, I will strike a chord with some of you. But one of the things that we're seeing is me as a peer visitor, amputee peer coach, I think I do a good job as a educator trying to help patients understand, 1, prosthetics, 2, taking care of themselves, 3, dealing with some of the emotional issues and trauma that comes from losing a limb. Now, patients who are diabetic patients, trying to get information and education to them about diabetes, foot care, caring for the residual limb, that's when we get into a whole nother realm of care, we'll say. But what I've seen and what I think we see as an industry we're not getting through to the patients because diabetes is on the rise. It's out of control. Amputations are happening to people who have diabetes. What's going on? To what extent are we not getting this message across to the patients who have diabetes to control that, to take care of themselves so it doesn't lead down the road of amputation? We all work to make the patients' lives better through the care that we provide to them. I am constantly reading and learning more about diabetes, prosthetics, and other medical information that I feel that I can share and that I feel that is useful to patients. While we all know that diabetes causes the most morbidities in our industry, it is our job to keep our patients just as informed as possible to give them the best chances for controlling the disease, diabetes. This starts with education. Patient education. Education is so vital in the treatment of people with diabetes. And it appears current approaches are ineffective. They're not working. Unfortunately, that message is falling short of where we would like it to be. Currently, diabetes is a global public health issue of paramount proportion. Just so you know, diabetes is about 10% worldwide. That means we're looking at about 415 million people have diabetes. And the predictions, they predict that by 2040, some 642 million people will be affected by this. What can be done about this? Whose responsibility is it? And what roles do we play in this education to prevent diabetes? So as we get into segment one of the show, which I've titled it Total Recall. I know we've all seen that movie, Total Recall. There's a reason I did that, because we're talking about patient education, what they remember. I think there is a lack of total recall when it comes to patients, diabetic patients. Part of our job is relying on information that we educate our patients with. Recent studies, I've looked at a bunch of studies on this topic, and recent studies show that patients are not absorbing this important information. Somehow they're not getting it. We are trying to relay this information. We're doing things. The study focused on diabetic health. Unfortunately, according to this study, which revealed that some of the people they tried to have in it were not eligible. And why do you think they were not eligible? I'm quite sure some of you are probably wondering, like, what is it? Like, why would they not be eligible for this study? Well, I know this information because I talk to so many people about the different demographics that skilled nursing facilities and hospitals do on areas before they place a certain facility in that area. So I've gotten a little bit more insight on this. The problem that they find, people that are not eligible due to education or the capacity to understand the information that they're going to relate to them in the study. The people who passed the screening process still had a difficult time absorbing and understanding the educational message presented in the treatment room. This study revealed this. Education, understanding was a big reason why most people did not get what information they were trying to relay to people. There is a certain theme in presenting information, diabetic information, to prevent lower extremity amputations and to help with lower extremity care. They are pretty much universally agreed upon this important theme that they use. People were not able to understand that. These basically include monitoring your blood sugar, use of appropriate footwear, daily foot inspections, who to contact when there's a problem, if there's any type of concerns, things like that. What referrals are needed to be made. Additionally, the connection between blood flow, nerve health, and diabetes are all so important, very important aspects which we need to educate patients on. But sadly, the study demonstrated that the amount of quality information relayed at the study during these office visits was very poor. That is a problem. Hello, everybody that just joined in. Thank you for your comments. Yes, food is important. It is your responsibility to learn and to take care of yourself. Tanya, I think, and Rhonda, those new people joining in on the conversation. One of the things that isn't so important, and we just touched on this, is yes, patients need to take ownership of their treatment plan. But patients should feel you are a partner in their care. That's so important for us to make sure patients feel that way. And I know sometimes patients come in, they feel they don't get enough time with their doctors or their care providers. We need to make sure that we're taking that time to sit there and explain and answer questions. I think office visits are so short. We try to dump so much information on a patient during that time that they just don't get it. It falls between the cracks, we'll say. There is no total recall of that information when they need it. So that's why I titled this section, Total Recall. Well, how much are we recalling and how are we disseminating this information? I firmly believe that education, the absorption of information and confirmation of the understanding of that information is on the educator. It is the educator, me as an educator, teaching people about their limbs, diabetic issues, complications, checking your skin, checking your residual limb, cleaning your device, cleaning your liners. That falls on me to make sure I take that time to properly educate and explain how to do these things. Is a big responsibility, because if we don't, then we find that people forget and they don't remember. And I'm going to tell you, it may take you 10, 20 times explaining the same thing over and over and over again, but we have to do it. And I know in some medical settings, we might get a little bit impatient with patients and not feel there's a need to do that. But I can tell you from my experience working with patients, I've had to repeat things, forget several times. It's almost hundreds of times that we have to go back in and reiterate the different things and processes that it involves in taking care of that residual limb, putting on your devices, and all the components that are part of wearing a prosthetic device. It is so important. We need to connect with our patients on their level. Every patient is going to be different. It may take you several attempts to get this message across. It may take you some hands-on. It may take you some demonstrating. It's going to take some time to make sure we get the message across and the information across to some of our patients. And keep in mind, some patients may be visual learners. Some are auditory. They like audible. They listen to you. And some, like I said, some are hands-on. We need to connect with these patients on their level in order for them to be successful, especially if they're at a point to where they have their lower extremities. We need to really work with them and help them understand how to save that limb before they do get to a point to where they are an amputee. And if they are an amputee, we need to work with them to take care of their residual limbs so that they don't have any other complications. So important, especially when you're a diabetic patient, because of skin issues and the complications that can come from wearing a prosthetic device as a diabetic patient. So important. Hey, Tracy, thanks for joining. So as I put this together, one of the things I also saw was we need to make sure that we're giving stuff to patients. And you as patients, here's the one thing I'm going to say. When people are giving you the handouts and information, don't throw them in the trash. Because I'll tell you, I go to a lot of places, doctor's office, hospitals. I can't tell you how many times I see stuff thrown in the trash or just left on the ground by a car or in the parking lot. That information is information that you need. And if you don't know how to read it, if you can't read, if you don't speak English, there is somebody who can translate that or read that for you. So don't ever take something that somebody gave you and trash it and throw it away. It is so crucial that some of this information in the pamphlets and brochures that's been handed out never really gets used, and that's very unfortunate. Whether people just don't want to read it or just don't want to take it, those things are very, very important. It is your duty. Yes, it is your duty to become a good patient and to be active in taking care of yourself, as well as it is our duty to become the best educator of our patients. And like I said, it's a two-way street. We have to become good educators, but patients also have to assume a certain amount of responsibility to maintain their health and well-being for their feet, their legs, and their bodies. After all, this is your life, this is your disease, and these are your feet. So I need for you to work at this as much as your care provider is going to work at trying to keep you healthy and keep all your extremities intact. I think for a successful outcome, there needs to be a partnership formed between you and your care providers. You guys need to physically say this to each other and understand that you are a team and you form a partnership. We as health providers are a resource, and we should be a trusted advisor to our patients, and you should be able to trust us and come to us for information and advice. Total recall. If we dump way too much information on a patient, they will basically tune us out. In a visit, you can only get so much information across to a patient. The best practice, I think, is for a patient to get bite-sized little bits of information. Too much will overwhelm that patient, and it will basically resort to nothing being done if you just dump way too much information on a patient about diabetic foot care, their diabetes care, their regimen. Trying to make sure that we deal this to them in little tasks and little bites. I think that's one way that may help patients really absorb what they need to understand about taking care of themselves. Segment 2, And understand, this was a hard show to write, because as a person who works with patients, a lot of patients, we have a lot of information that is out there, but putting this show together, it's really hard to try and put it across to some of you out there who, yes, you're an amputee, but you're a diabetic. You still can use the information in the show. And if you are listening to this show and you have all your extremities, brother, take care of your stuff. Follow what information I'm going to put out there to you on this show, because you don't want to go down that road to letting your diabetes get out of control. Now, segment 2, the threat is real. The threat of diabetes and limb loss is very serious. It is a very real thing. I have met some diabetic patients who just do not take that serious. I have been in hospitals where the patient is sitting there with a 2-liter bottle of Pepsi and he's got candy bars and all kinds of stuff at his bedside. The threat is real. For disease, foot disease continues to be a major threat to individuals with diabetes. The lifetime risk of developing a foot complication leading to a significant morbidity or mortality is between 12% and 25%. Patient education is considered the cornerstone of diabetes management due to the central role of the patient and the role that they play in their own diabetes care on a daily basis, having taken that responsibility for a large number of your behavioral and activity choices, your food choices, things that you do. It is a very serious undertaking for you to take that serious. Foot complications. People with diabetes can develop many different foot problems. We all know this. You know this. I know this from where I work and from some of you out there who have lost limbs due to some of these complications. Even ordinary problems can get worse and lead to serious complications. The most serious, amputation. We need to learn about proper foot care to prevent and delay any foot complications. Foot problems most often happen when there is nerve damage, also called neuropathy. We know about that. In fact, I got a patient right now. Her story was she was walking on a fractured ankle for years, didn't even know it was busted. They put a titanium rod in her foot. That broke somehow. She broke that and it popped through her foot. You're talking about, and not feeling any of this. So the foot got infected, of course. They had to amputate. Serious stuff here. Very serious stuff, because once it gets to that level, it's a game changer. So some of the things that we have to watch out for are the foot complications, neuropathy, skin changes. We know diabetes can cause changes in skin of the foot. What does that mean? Skin changes, dryness. The dryness, that the cracking feet, that's going to lead to some problems. What ends up happening is the nerves get damaged. They don't produce the oil. Like, some people have oily skin. Well, your feet do the same thing. If that nerve gets damaged and those that it can no longer produce that oil, what happens? Your foot gets cracked, cuts, dryness, infection sets in. We can have problems. So what do? When we're taking baths, we want to make sure we add something natural to that. You can talk to your podiatrist about that. I'm not going to really go down into that, but I'm just naming off some of these things because this is a very real situation. I'm giving you some of the crash course education stuff here in this show of things that you probably didn't catch in your appointment with your doctor. Hey, Susan. So, skin changes, calluses. Okay, we have to be aware of those. You should know why all those things are important. Calluses can occur more often and build up faster on the feet of people with diabetes. So why is a callus important to you? Because they can grow a lot quicker with you. We're looking at things such as foot ulcers. We know why those are important. And we know why we need to take care of those. Poor circulation. All these things lead up to what? Amputation. If we don't follow up, read up, get our knowledge up to speed with those complications. So I wanted to just cover those really quickly. Those are some of the complications that you're looking at that you need to know about. And if you haven't gotten that information from your healthcare provider, segment 2 of this show talks about the threat is real. The threat is real, and it's real because of those complications. So look at the information that your doctor gives you. Know about your feet, your lower extremities, the things that can come from complications due to diabetes. The last thing we want to do is have those lead to amputation. People with diabetes are far more likely to have a foot or leg amputated than other people. The problem, many of the people with diabetes have peripheral artery disease, PAD, which reduces blood flow to the feet. If you know you're anywhere near that or have an issue with that, you definitely want to make sure you're doing regular foot care, wearing the proper footwear, and doing the things that you need to do to protect your feet. Probably the biggest one that I want to talk about is one of the biggest threats to you and your feet as a diabetic is smoking. Smoking affects small blood vessels. It can cause and decrease blood flow to the feet and make wounds heal slowly. A lot of people with diabetes who need amputations or had amputations are smokers. I ask that question every single time when I work with a patient. Are you diabetic? If they're diabetic, I typically want to know, do they smoke? These are some things that when we talk about patient education, diabetes, self-care, and adherence, whose responsibility is it? Well, as you can see, some of these things that we're covering, you can take care of yourself. You should have the knowledge of what you're doing to take care of your health way before your doctor has to get involved. You know if you're doing things right or if you're not doing things right. So take care of yourself out there, guys. I want to see you all live a long, long, healthy life. So before we get into segment 3, I am going to take me a little break, wet my whistle, because as you know, most of you, I'm dealing with a little bit of head cold thing here, and I don't want to be coughing like crazy on the mic. So stay with me. We'll be right back with segment 3. I always love it when I hit my tunes, and because you're live, you know, they have that delay. So you guys are probably sitting there going, man, what is he listening to, and what's going on? So those I always like giving thanks to my people. So Rich at Soul Effective Productions, who helps me with a lot of my tracks, and Zed, who YouTube just hates me because I keep playing some of their tracks. I'll probably play one of the tracks before we end the show. If you guys like any of that music, reach out to me on Facebook. I can send you some links where you can check out Zed, and you can get in touch with my friend Rich, who is a producer, a magician, basically. Makes all these groovy tunes and movies and all those different things. Thanks, guys, for all that love that you give to the show. Make me sound somewhat professional. So segment 3, what do you remember? I want to throw that out there. So if you are listening to this show and if you're on here tonight, I'd like to see some of you post your comments. What do you remember about your talk about having diabetes and taking care of your feet? So feel free to post stuff and leave your comments in here, because as people look at this show, I want this to be kind of like a refresher for all of us on the little things that we need to remember about taking care of our feet, our skin, our residual limbs. You were told certain things by certain people, do's and don'ts. I'm going to put that up there. I'll put that in here right now. What do you remember? And throw them up there. Throw them up there in this comment, because I'd like to see what you remember, and we'll discuss those hopefully as this goes on further in the show. So what do you remember about being told about what you should do to help control your diabetes, take care of your feet, and take care of your residual limb? That's segment 3 of the show. What do you remember? How many of you out there can honestly say you remember what information was given to you for taking care of your feet as a diabetic? So there you go. There's your pop quiz, your homework as we do the show. Education, as we said, is vital, a very vital component to the treatment and regime of people with diabetes. It appears current approaches, the things we're trying to do right now, are not working to help impact diabetic health and keeping people healthy. This is why I'm doing this show tonight, because studies show that we as healthcare providers are failing to get this message across to the patient. We need to get better at that. As I said before, the numbers for people with diabetes is 415 million worldwide. Currently, diabetes is out of control. I mean, it really is. Most studies have indicated that patients with diabetes have lower self-care ability and suffer from depression, blindness, and foot ulcers. With that being said, does that affect our ability to take care of ourselves? Maybe this is why we're in such a lack of self-care or understanding. Depression definitely can lead to that. Lack of education can definitely lead to that, as we saw earlier in the show, based on studies. A proper adherence to self-care behaviors can reduce the disease itself, the complications that come with it too. Studies show up to 50% if we follow the information that is being told to us. Now, if we don't practice that, on the other hand, it is the main cause of mortality in diabetes. But why? Why are we not able to get this information that is so important and so crucial out there to those of you that need it? Well, previous studies reported that psychological factors like self-efficacy, social support, and attitude influence all have an effect on our behavior and lifestyle of people with diabetes. That's very important. I find that people with proper support structure tend to have a little bit better control of that. People that don't have that support structure in place don't have the success that I would like for them to have with controlling their diabetes and taking care of their residual limb, being a good ambulator, getting back out there and living their life with a prosthetic device. Segment 4, what's behind America's epic fail on diabetes? Or should we say epic fail to patients with diabetes? I'm going to rattle off some of these, and I think you will see that our country definitely is lacking in this. I think probably one of the biggest things that is a big cause or a major cause for this, public awareness campaigns. We see everything on TV except for what? How do we deal with diabetes? Something that is so out of control, something that is such a big problem. Why do we not see more about this issue and the complications that come from it? Well, let's think about it. Diabetes is related to what? Smoking. Diabetes is related to obesity. So with those two things right there, think about that as an industry on a whole. As far as when you watch TV, the commercials that are out there, the food commercials, okay, obesity, food. When we start thinking about that, I think that's a big reason why we don't see more flat out commercials about smoking, overeating, eating the wrong foods. There's a McDonald's commercial on just about every channel between every show that you see. There's some type of smoking ad out there. There's also drinking. Alcohol is promoted. Smoking is promoted. Eating horrible foods. Taco Bell, McDonald's, Wendy's. All these foods are constantly being thrown at us at a incredible rate, brainwashing us. I think this is part of the bigger picture problem, is that people think that McDonald's is healthy. They think that Wendy's and Taco Bell are all healthy foods. You're a diabetic. No, they're not healthy for you. No matter what you see on a TV ad, these things are bad for you. Sodas, alcohol, it's a constant barrage of subliminal messaging to eat, to drink, to smoke. I think that is probably a huge reason behind America's failed attempt to control diabetes and to help those who are affected by diabetes, is because we, as a country, as a nation, are failing to do what needs to be done to tell the truth and put the truth out there. How about prevention? Obesity is the underlying cause of late onset type 2 diabetes, which accounts for more than 90% of new cases. Today, about 40% of the U.S. adults are considered obese, not to mention young kids, youth, who are non-active. They play video games all the time. They're sitting around. We are our own worst enemy when it comes to this. So when we talk about diabetes self-care adherence, I think one of the biggest problems for us as a country, when I talk about what's behind America's epic fail on diabetes or diabetics, is we don't take it serious as a country. We are not putting it in mainstream TV. We would much rather promote about McDonald's and the Big Mac, or the latest new beer that came out from Budweiser. Smoking is so cool, vape pens, all these different things. All these different things for half the people in our country who don't even know that they are diabetics. Today, about 40% of the U.S. adults are considered obese, up to 30% 2 decades ago, according to a CDC's report. This was about 2017, that report came out. Patients are also dealing with, when we talk about diabetic patients, we find that there are a couple things that are affecting them. And you would be surprised to hear this in this day and age of our country with all the modern advances we have. Unfortunately, there are some reasons for non-adherence, but there are 3 that stand out more than anything: the complexity of the drug regimen, cost, and negative patient perception about their treatment. Patients are rationing insulin because of the cost. That is insane. That is crazy. Here's something that is going to save your life, and they're self-rationing it. They're not taking it as prescribed by the doctor because the cost is so expensive. Some patients are checking themselves into the ER just so that they can get the insulin that they need and the medications they need. This is a problem. This is a big problem. It goes way beyond education. I see it a lot out there. There is a major problem in our education, our medical system, how we are treating people with diabetes. Most people don't even know they have it. We are brainwashing ourselves, basically, by not putting this at the forefront of every commercial that is on TV. At the rate that people are getting diabetes, this should be the number one thing that you see on television that talks about taking care of yourself, taking care of your health, and being checked. It's very unfortunate that we don't. It's going to lead to more and more problems, I think, down the road for everyone involved. So what is the solution? That's the question. What is the solution? How do we solve this? How do we tackle this tough thing? Well, in conclusion, I want to put this out there. The education part of it. We need to have foot care. Inspect your feet every day. I am going to do my part to put some good information out there, education-wise, that will help you as diabetics, as amputees who are diabetics. We need to take care of our feet. You need to take care of your residual limb. Inspect those every day and seek care early if you find something wrong. If you see something that ain't right, get on the phone, get to the doctor, get to the ER, check that out. Foot care. Most people can prevent any serious foot problems or residual limb problems, revisions, debridements, different things like that, by just taking a look at your feet or inspecting your residual limb. And if you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. Let somebody know. Prevention. Next. Your health care provider should be able to help you with that. Prevention, a complete foot exam at least once a year. Go in and get things checked out. Let them see, trim those toenails, get in there and check your feet. If you're a diabetic, you should be doing that with a routine, however often you need to get in to get your feet checked. Caring for your feet. There are many things you can do to keep your feet healthy. Many, many things you can do. Take care of your diabetes. Work with your health care team. Talk with them. Keep your blood glucose in your target range. Check your feet every day. Look at your feet. Look at your toes. Look in between them. Do all those things. Cuts, swelling, blisters, all the different things that happen with your feet. Make sure you're checking them daily so you know when something has happened. Before and after you put on your shoes. I tell patients that all the time. Before and after you put on your prosthetic limb or your prosthesis, check your limb before and after, because it'll at least let you know if you checked it in the morning before you put it on and you check it at night before you go to bed, you will catch something early enough to get help and get that taken care of before it becomes a bigger problem. Be more active. If you are a person with all your extremities, be more active. Plan your physical fitness program. Get up, walk, do stuff. Get up. Don't sit on the couch. Don't be eating chips. Don't be going to McDonald's. Step away from all that unhealthy food. In this day and age with Google and the internet, it is very easy to look up how you should be eating. That is one of the biggest problems that I saw, is that people don't take their carbohydrates serious. If you have an issue with diabetes, you cannot be messing around with those carbs, okay? Carbs are not anything to be played with. Hi, Glenda. You got to do it. You got to do that. It is so important. It is so important. Ask your doctor about Medicare coverage for special shoes. Wash your feet every day. Dry them carefully, especially between the toes. You don't want to leave that moisture in between there, because that's how things can happen. Remember, your feet, they're naturally are going to suffer some damage because the nerves there do not necessarily produce the oil in your feet to keep them nice and moist. They get dry and get cracky petroleum jelly, put those, rub a little bit of that on your feet, but do not put it between your toes. Keep your skin soft and smooth. Rub a thin coat of skin lotion over the tops of and bottoms of your feet. But again, not between your toes. If you can see and reach your toenails, okay, I don't recommend this, but it does talk about if you can see and reach them. And seeing, meaning you can see them, what you're cutting, try to keep them trimmed. Don't let them get out of control. If you have someone professionally do them, that will probably be your best bet, because one slip can be a very, very bad move. Wear shoes and socks all the time. When you're walking around your house, do not be walking barefooted. My family, we don't even have diabetes, and I don't let any of them walk around barefooted. I tell them to put something on those feet, because a lot of things can happen. Infections, you step on something, you hit something, piece of glass, nail, tack, whatever. Anything can go wrong. And, you don't know how much you miss a foot until you don't have it. So wear shoes and socks. Before you put on shoes, check those shoes. Look inside of them. See what's going on inside that shoe. I've had patients, sunglasses, quarters, thumbtacks, glass, all kinds of stuff inside their shoe. They never inspect it. They have neuropathy. They put it on. They don't even feel it. Before they know it, their foot's cut up, tore up, infection, blood in your sock. You're in the ER. Gangrene. They're amputating. So inspect your shoes before you put them on. Please, please inspect your shoes before you put them on. And don't go outside barefooted. If you are a diabetic, you should know by now, do not be caught barefooted in or out of your house. It is not a smooth, cool move. Protect your feet from hot and cold, okay? Put some flip-flops on, put something on, but take care of those feet, okay? Especially if you want to go to the beach, hot pavement. It doesn't have to be that hot. And before you know it, you got a problem with your foot. Keep that blood flowing to your feet, people, okay? Put your feet up when you're sitting. Wiggle those toes. Move them. Make those little piggies go to market, okay? Rotate your ankles. Do these things, a couple minutes throughout the day as you're sitting watching your favorite TV show, laying in bed, waking up in the morning. Get active, people. Do stuff. Now, get started now. Don't wait to do this. If you hear this show, get started. Man, I want all of you to be better at taking care of yourself with your diabetes so that you don't have to see me. But if you do see me, we're still going to have to take care of that residual limb because you have diabetes. And that's going to be inside of a socket, and we're going to have to make sure we take care of it. So hopefully this show helped a little bit tonight. Education is so crucial in taking care of your diabetes. Any information that you can get online, pamphlets from your doctor, read it, keep it, make notes. If you go to your doctor and he's talking to you about it and he's trying to tell you all this stuff, and you don't get it all, let him know that, hey, can you get me this information, or slow down and repeat it to me. Don't ever be afraid to say, I don't understand, because the worst thing you can do is to leave there with no knowledge and go out and hurt yourself. No matter how many times you have to ask that doctor or the podiatrist or whoever it is that you go to see for your care, you ask that question over and over again until you get it. If you have questions about anything, feel free to ask your professional healthcare provider. Feel free to reach out to me. I would like to thank all of you for another show and tuning in, listening to me here at Amp Life Talk Radio, the podcast done by an amputee for all of you amputees out there, Amp Nation. Hopefully this little show brought some light to you as a diabetic amputee, or as just a diabetic with all your extremities. Education is important. Information is important. Knowing how to take care of your feet if you have them, and knowing how to take care of your residual limb if you got them too. These are so important with taking care of our overall health and care. Please reach out to me and ask me questions. I will send you links and information if you want more information on how to be better at self-care, self-adherence with your diabetes, because as a patient, remember, a lot of this responsibility does fall on you, but as a healthcare provider, we also want to partner up with you to help you keep all of your extremities healthy and safe. I cannot thank you all enough for tuning in to another episode of Amp Life Talk Radio, a show for amputees by amputees. Make sure you leave me a comment on Facebook or question. You can always reach me over there on Facebook at Amp Life Talk Radio. You can keep up with all my shenanigans over on Instagram, same thing, Amp Life Talk Radio, and see some of the Spartan stuff that we're up to and what we're doing out there. I cannot thank all of you enough for tuning in to this show, making it a hit, and helping it be a success. For those of you that don't know, I am posting a lot of the videos over at amplifetalkradio.com. If you want to see all the videos of me doing the show, please go over there, check it out. And we have some amazing things coming up this year. For those of you that don't know, I work for Hanger Prosthetics now, and I am in a much bigger territory. And I have a really big company behind me doing some amazing things for people. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to help you. Check out the show on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and download the app at Google Play. That's right. We have an app. You can check out the app, get it on your phone, and not miss any episodes. And you can also leave me comments. Well, all you beautiful, sexy people, I want to say thank you again for listening to another episode of Amp Life Talk Radio, a show for amputees by an amputee. Have a beautiful night.
You are listening to Sean Harrison on Amp Life Talk Radio, a place for amputees and those dealing with limb loss. The views expressed on the show by the host, co-hosts, and guests are their own. Always seek medical advice from a licensed medical professional.